Hi everybody, Mr. Duncan here, coming at you live from Mr. Duncan's room. It's fourth block on a very lovely Tuesday afternoon, and because I was in such a good mood, I decided I'm going to teach you how to solve systems by elimination. You are welcome in advance. Okay, first thing we have to remember is that standard form of a linear equation is this equation right here, ax plus by equals c. I don't think this is new to anybody. I don't think I even need to say this to anybody, but I'm just reminding you this is what standard form is. The reason that I have to bring this up is because when you have a system of linear equations and both linear equations of the system are in standard form, this system is custom set up for using a new method of solving the system of linear equations, which we are going to call elimination. You'll figure out why we call it elimination a little bit later. But first, let's take a walk back into 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade, okay? And let's just answer a couple of questions. -2 plus 2 equals what, everybody? Anyone? Anyone? For those of you who said 0, you're absolutely correct. What about 3 plus -3? Anybody? Anybody? Once again, 0. But wait, what about -5 plus 5? Okay, clearly we understand that the answer is 0x, but really, please don't give me 0x. That is the same thing as 0. And so all of these, 9 plus -9x, again, 0x, but it's really not. It's just 0, okay? All of these are what we call additive inverses, meaning two numbers that add up together or two terms that add up together to give you 0. That is the gist of using elimination, the elimination method to solve systems of linear equations. You're always trying to find additive inverses. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to solve the following system by elimination. We've got 5x plus y. Oops. Had something funky going on with my computer. Sorry about that. I've got 5x plus y equals 44, and -4x plus minus y equals -34. Notice what's highlighted in red. These two terms are additive inverses of each other, plus y, minus y. If I add those together, I'm going to get 0, and that's really what I'm looking for. So to solve by elimination, step 1, choose which variable to eliminate. We are going to eliminate the one that is easiest to get in this form here, where I have additive inverses of each other. Okay, so we're going to eliminate y. So right here, the y in both equations have opposite coefficients, so they'll be easiest to eliminate. Then what we are going to do is this funky thing that might seem a little strange at first. Oops. And what I'm going to do is I am going to, oh, well, that's not going to work. I am going to take both of these equations and I'm going to add them together. Okay, this is probably something you haven't seen, but what I'm going to do, take this whole equation, add it, okay, and pretend that this was, what, 1st grade, kindergarten. We're going to add the long way where we do 6 plus 8 equals 14, okay? That kind of thing. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the first term plus the second term. And notice they're both in standard form, so my like terms are actually lined up. So 5x plus -4x. Don't forget this plus right there. 5x plus -4x, what is that? Well, that is just x, or 1x, okay? What about, here's where the magic happens, what about positive y plus negative y? Well, that's just going to add up to 0y, which we'll get rid of in a second. And then finally, 44 plus -34 is just going to be 10. So once I add these things together, I wind up with x plus 0y equals 10. But of course, we all know that 0y is just 0. And so really what I have just found out, oops, is that x equals 10. Am I done though? No, not quite, but most of the hard work is done. I have just found out that x is 10. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute the solution into either equation and solve. So I started with x equals 10. So I'm going to do 5 times 10. So this was the, by the way, the equation we're plugging into was the one 5x plus y equals 44. I forgot to write that. But now we're going to do 5 times 10 plus y equals 44, which means 50 plus y equals 44, which means subtract 50 from both sides, minus 50, minus 50, y is going to be negative 6. And so the solution to my system is 10 comma negative 6. Now, it might seem like we're done, but we always want to check our work, especially when we're doing this much arithmetic. We want to make sure we didn't make any mistakes. So I'm going to plug 10 in for x, 10 in for x, and negative 6 in for y in both of these equations. So the 10 is going to go in for x both places. The negative 6 is going to go in for y both places. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get true statements. 5 times 10 plus negative 6 is 44. Well, let's see. That's 50 minus 6. Is that 44? Yes, it is. So I know I'm right. Excellent. What about the next one? Negative 4x minus y equals negative 34. So that's negative 4 times 10 minus negative 6 equals negative 34. So that's going to be negative 40 plus 6 equals negative 34. Negative 40 plus 6, by the way, is negative 34. So I know I'm right. Now I am done. But clearly, that was a little bit tough, so some of us need a couple more examples. So let's do another one. First, we have this equation, or this system of equations, rather. So I have 3x. Sorry about that. I've got 3x plus y equals 15. Negative 3x minus 3y equals negative 21. And remember, step 1, choose which variable to eliminate. Well, remember, the one that we're going to eliminate is the one that is easiest to get additive inverses of. Look at the y's. Positive 1y, negative 3y. Those are not additive inverses. Let's look at the x's. 3x, negative 3x, those certainly are. So let's eliminate x. So what we say is the x in both equations have opposite coefficients. So they're going to be easiest to eliminate. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my two equations, just like old school addition. So I add those, and let's see what happens. First of all, 3x plus negative 3x right here. 3x plus negative 3x is going to give me, you guessed it, 0. Okay, so I can write 0x, or what I could do is just write nothing at all. Okay, next, y plus negative 3y is going to be negative 2y, and 15 plus negative 21 is going to give me negative 6. So I wind up with negative 2y equals negative 6. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2, and I'm going to get that y equals 3. Once again, I'm not entirely done, because what I have to do is find out what x is. I'm going to put it into, I'm going to plug y equals 3 into the easier looking equation. So that one right there, it's got less going on. So I get that 3x plus 3 equals 15. And so 3x equals 12 when I subtract 3 from both sides. Minus 3, minus 3. Okay? And then finally, divide by 3, I get that x equals 4. So my solution is 3 comma 4, right? Well, wrong. It's not the number that I start with that goes first. It's the x value that goes forth, so it's 4 comma 3. And then you probably know what we have to do next. We just have to plug in 4 comma 3, 4 for x and 3 for y in both equations and see what happens. So 3 times 4 plus 3, does that equal 15? Well, that's 12 plus 3, which everybody knows is 15. So I've got the first one right. Now, negative 3 times 4 minus 3 times 3 is negative 12 minus 9. That gives me negative 21. So negative 12 minus 9 is negative 21. I know that I got it right. Excellent. I am done. So now, here's the thing we can do, though. all we've been doing is the very easiest form of elimination. I think everybody probably followed me pretty well who was paying attention. Now, the thing is, we can do both addition like we just did, or we can do subtraction. So let's look at this. There's not a lot to write on this page, but you need to bring your brains, okay? So we have two systems set up right here. 3x plus 5y equals 1, 3x minus y equals 2. Now, when we have the same coefficient, notice this 3x and 3x, they are exactly the same. They're not opposites anymore. When we have that situation, what we're going to do is we are going to subtract the two equations from each other. So look what happens. I subtract, and I have to put parentheses because what I'm really doing is I'm subtracting everything, okay? So when I subtract everything, I get 3x minus 3x gives me 0. But then you have to realize, what am I doing right here? I am subtracting a negative, okay? This negative sign right here did not go away, but this is a negative here. So what I'm really doing, subtracting a negative, that's the same thing as saying 5y plus y, okay? So, so what I have here is 5y plus y is going to give me positive 6y, and then 1, here's what I'm doing. I've got 1 right here, minus 2. Okay, that might not have been clear to everybody, but I start with my number right here. I do this operation, this minus, and then this number. So 1 minus 2 is going to give me negative 1. So I have 6y equals negative 1, which means that y is equal to negative 6. Or sorry, that y is equal to negative 1/6. Now, when we have opposite coefficients, what we do is we add the two equations. That's actually the easier one. Notice here, now I have 3x and minus 3x. So what I'm going to do is what we were just doing, and I'm going to add both equations. That one's easier because then these signs don't really change any. I've just got 3x. I wind up with 3x plus negative 3x, which gives me 0x. 5y plus negative y gives me plus 4y, and 1 plus 2 obviously gives me 3. I don't need that 0, so I just have 4y equals 3. And so y is going to equal 3/4 when I divide both sides by 4. Okay, and up here it was y equals negative 1/6. Okay, so those are the two things we can do, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple practice problems with those as well. So, choosing a variable. How do we decide which variable we want to eliminate? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look to see if one variable has the same or opposite coefficients. If so, we're going to eliminate that variable. There are times when we don't have this situation. We're going to talk about that in our next video, but I think most of the ones should work out pretty fine for this video. So we're going to solve the system by elimination, and we have to think about which variable do I eliminate? Well, look for the one that has the same or opposite coefficient. Here I can eliminate this 2x, or I can eliminate y, because notice the x's have the same coefficient, the y's have different coefficients. So you can do it, you can actually here eliminate the x's or the y's. I want to eliminate the x's not because it's easier, but because we'll get a little bit of practice doing that. So notice the x's have the same coefficient, the 2, positive 2, and positive 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract this second equation from the first equation. All right? So what I do is I have 2x minus 2x, which gives me 0x. Then I do, let's change the color, how about green? Then I do y minus negative y. Minus a negative y means plus y. So what I'm really doing, you can think about it in your head, what I'm really doing is adding y. Y plus y gives me plus 2y. And then, finally, let's do negative 5 minus negative 3. Minus negative 3, kind of like adding. And so I get negative 5 plus 3, which equals negative 2. Obviously, I don't need this 0x, so I just have 2y equals negative 2. Now, what I would like to do for a second is I would like to move all of this stuff. I would like to move as much of this stuff over as I can. Okay? And I'm just going to finish solving right here. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. Y equals negative 1. I know I'm not done. I'm not saying I'm done. But I want to just talk about one other way I could have thought about doing this. Seeing that the y's are the same, okay, what I could have done instead of what I already did is instead of just subtracting the whole thing and trying to do it in my head, what I could do is I could multiply everything by negative 1. So what that would mean, in this second equation, multiply this by negative 1, that becomes a negative 2x. Multiply the negative y by negative 1, that becomes a positive y. And multiply the negative 3 by negative 1, that would become positive 3. So notice, all I did was I changed the sign on every term. Do we see that? Now, what I can do from there is I can do what I was doing in the beginning and just add all of these. I end up doing the same work. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. Y plus y is 2y. 5 plus 3, or sorry, negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Notice I get the same answer, but that's another way to think about it if that helps you. Okay, so let's move on. Y equals negative 1. I know I'm not done. What I have to do is I have to substitute this negative 1 into one of the equations. Which one of the equations do I want to substitute it in for? Well, I'm going to substitute it into whichever one looks easier to me. And this top one looks just a tiny bit easier. So I'm going to go up here, and I am going to substitute y equals negative 1 into the top equation. So I start with my equation, 2x plus y equals negative 5. And so it's 2x plus negative 1 equals negative 5. And then I just solve for x. So plus and negative is this is the same thing as saying 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Plus, from here, it's very simple, plus 1. Plus 1, I get 2x equals negative 4. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. I have x equals negative 2. X equals negative 2, y equals 1. So my solution appears to be negative 2 comma negative 1. Now, if you need to finish copying, go ahead and pause this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my solution and I'm going to erase everything else. I'm going to move this up here. I'm going to take everything else, delete it so that I can do my check on the same screen. Okay. Oh, too much. Okay. Now let's check this answer. I have to do both of these, remember? So my first one, 2x plus y equals negative 5. I'm going to check 2 times negative 2 plus negative 1 equals negative 5. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4 plus negative 1 equals negative 5. Is that true? Well, negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5. So negative 5 equals negative 5. I did that one right. Let's go to the next one. 2x minus y equals negative 3. So 2 times negative 2 minus negative 1 should equal negative 3. Let's see what happens. I have negative 4. Minus a negative is the same thing as plus, so negative 4 plus 1. Does that equal negative 3? It sure does. And so I'm done. And until I do this check, I cannot call myself complete. It is now your turn to solve this by using elimination. It should be pretty obvious which variable you're going to eliminate and then which one you're going to solve for. Okay, so complete this 100%. You have to eliminate one variable, solve for the other one, then plug your answer back in to get both an x and a y, and then you have to check your answer in both equations. And then what we're going to do is, let's see. I don't know why this slide is here. Oh well, I mean, we're still going to solve the problem, but this slide seems to have crept in. I did not mean to put this in here. Okay, so we've got this problem. 5x plus y equals 17. Negative 2x plus y equals negative 4. I'm clearly going to eliminate this variable right here, this y, because they have the same coefficient. And my other choice is 5x and negative 2, and that's going to be more work to eliminate. So I'm going to eliminate my y, which means I am going to subtract these two equations. Okay, so I'm going to choose to do y. Okay, and I'm going to subtract these two equations. Okay, or what I could do instead of subtracting is I could just change the sign on everything, which I suspect some of you might find is easier. I'm going to change the sign on everything and add them together. The reason I need to change my sign on everything on the second one is so that I have opposite coefficients, and then I can just add these together. So 5x plus 2x, 7x. Y plus negative y, nothing, 0. 17 plus 4, 21. So I have 7x equals 21, which means x equals 3. Okay. Next step, I knew that, well, I already got here, x equals 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that into one of these equations. Which one am I going to plug it into? Well, which one looks easier? I'm going to say that this one here looks just a tiny bit easier because I avoid some negatives. So I'm going to take my x and I'm going to plug in right where x is. So I start with 5. Start with 5x plus y. Actually, I've already solved this down here. I just remembered that. So x equals 3. I think the solution's actually on the next page. Yeah, so I'm going to plug it into either equation. So I'm going to plug it into the equation where I had negative 2x plus y equals negative 4. I plug it in there. I get negative 6 plus y equals negative 4. Negative 6 plus y equals 4. When I add 6 to both sides, I get that y equals 2. So my solution is going to be 3, 2. Now I need to check both sides. 3 in for x, 2 in for y. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2. Does that equal 17? It sure does. I'm done. Plug 3, 2 in for the next one. 3 in for x, 2 in for y. Negative 6 plus 2. Does that equal negative 4? It sure does. Oh, where'd my check mark go? It's there. Yay, I'm done. Okay, that's all there is to it. So let's do one more together, and then it's your turn, and I believe we are done with the packet at that point. Maybe not. Okay, so number 2, solve the system by elimination. 2x plus y equals negative 6. Yeah, let's do this quickly because we're running out of time. 2x plus y equals negative 6. What I'm going to do, I'm going to figure out which equation or which variable to eliminate. It's going to be y. I'm going to change the signs on everything. Negative, negative, positive. And now I can just add these two together. 2x plus negative 3x is negative 1x, or just negative x. Y plus negative y is 0. Negative 6 plus 10 is 4. So negative x equals 4, or x equals negative 4. Now I plug this into either equation. Which one looks easier? Actually, they both look about the same amount of easy. So I'll just plug it into the first one. Okay, so I start with 2x plus y equals negative 6, knowing that x equals negative 4. And I get that 2 times negative 4 plus y equals negative 6. So negative 8 plus y equals negative 6. Add 8 to both sides. I get that y equals 2. y equals 2, x equals -4, so my answer is -4, comma, 2. But I don't know that for certain until I check. So let me do my check. I get my first equation, 2x plus y equals -6. Check to see if this is true. 2 times -4 plus 2 equals -6. Is that true? I got -8 plus 2. Is that equal to -6? It sure is. So it's looking likely that I didn't make any mistakes, but I need to check the second one. 3x plus y equals -10. I plug in -4 for x, 3 times -4 plus 2. Is that equal to -10? Let's see. -12 plus 2. Is that equal to -10? Let's see. -10 equals -10. And I'm done. So this one's your turn. We're going to skip it. And it does actually appear that we are done with this video. I think I might have accidentally printed one too many slides, but we are done. Or maybe my numbers are just off. But nevertheless, I am done, and I leave the rest of it to you.